Have you ever, like, really paused to look at an old photo of yourself
Hmm.
and thought, wait, is that really me? Or even just considered how much you change, from year to year?
Yeah, it's a common feeling.
It's a natural question, I think, especially when you hear this uh, pretty startling fact one of our sources mentioned,
Oh, what's that?
that within about 7 years, most of the cells in your body,
Yeah.
they've died and been replaced.
Right, the turnover is constant.
So physically, you're just not the exact same collection of atoms you were 7 years ago,
Hmm.
which makes you ask,
Yeah.
what does make you, well, you?
Mm-hmm.
And this leads us straight into one of philosophy's biggest, most enduring puzzles.
The ship of Theseus.
Exactly. Imagine this legendary ship, right? Famous voyages, maybe the one Theseus sailed.
Okay.
Over hundreds of years, the wooden planks rot, they decay,
Naturally.
so they get replaced, piece by piece, with brand new ones, until eventually not a single original plank is left. Is it still the ship of Theseus?
That's the classic question.
But then it gets even trickier. What if, like some philosophers added later, someone collected all those old discarded planks?
The original ones.
Yeah, and carefully put them back together into a second ship.
Ah.
Now you've got two ships. Which one, if either, is the real original ship of Theseus?
And that ancient riddle, the ship of Theseus, it really poses this profound challenge, doesn't it, to how we understand personal identity.
Right, what it means to be the same person over time.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack this whole paradox, see how it affects us, right now.
Okay.
We'll explore, are we mainly our bodies, our minds, or maybe something else entirely? And how these really old philosophical questions connect directly to, well, cutting-edge science and tech.
Like what?
Things like human head transplants, advanced AI, it forces us to think, can identity even be pinned down? Or is it always shifting? With experiences, environment, even technology.
So to really get a grip on this, where did this famous thought experiment actually come from? Who first asked it?
Well, the first account we really have is from the ancient Greek writer Plutarch.
Okay.
He wrote about the Athenians, how they carefully preserved Theseus's ship for centuries.
Taking out the old planks, putting in new ones.
Exactly, taking away the decaying bits, putting in strong new timber. And apparently, even back then, it was a huge debate among philosophers.
Same ship, different ship.
Right. Some argued it was the same, others said, no way, it's completely changed.
And then, centuries later, Thomas Hobbes comes along.
Yes, the brilliant Thomas Hobbes. He adds this fantastic twist, makes it even harder.
The second ship made of old parts.
Precisely. He imagines a custodian gathering up all those discarded original planks and rebuilding a second ship.
Which just throws everything up in the air.
It does. Which one holds the original identity? The one with continuous existence but all new parts?
Or the one made of the original stuff, but rebuilt later.
Right. And Hobbes started thinking about identity based on form, its structure, its function versus matter, its physical bits and pieces.
It feels like a brain teaser about a ship.
Yeah.
But you're saying it's more than that.
Oh, absolutely. If you dig just a little deeper, the ship of Theseus holds up this, well, surprisingly profound mirror to our own existence.
How so?
Just like that ship, our bodies are constantly changing.
Like we said with the cells, right? That 7-year replacement cycle.
Yeah.
Sources confirm that.
Exactly. And that immediately leads to these deep, maybe even unsettling questions about your identity. If your physical self is always in flux, what actually makes you, you?
Does it mean you're not really the person who did something 7 years ago?
Or, own something you bought 10 years back.
Yeah.
It even makes you ask, should someone be held accountable for a crime after 7 years if physically he is a different person?
Whoa.
Why keep someone in jail if the actual physical person who committed the crime is gone, replaced?
That definitely flies in the face of how we feel, right? Our gut feeling is, of course, I'm the same person.
Absolutely. It clashes with our intuition.
So how do philosophers try to square that, reconcile that feeling with the physical facts?
Well, they've been wrestling with this for centuries, as you can imagine, and it's led to some distinct camps, different theories about what personal identity really consists of.
Okay, like what?
One major view is called animalism.
Animalism.
Yeah, it sounds a bit stark, but the idea is pretty simple. You are your biological body, a human animal.
Okay.
Your identity, your persistence through time, comes from the continuous, unbroken physical existence of that organism, even as its cells swap out.
Like a river, maybe? The water changes, but we still call it the same river. Or a mountain, like you said.
Sort of, yeah. The underlying structure persists. Thinkers like Eric Olson argue strongly for this we are human animals identity as bodily continuity.
So what does animalism say about something extreme like a head transplant?
Ah, that's a key test case.
Vic.
The strict animalist view would say the person resulting from the transplant is actually the body donor.
Really? Not the person whose head it was.
Because the original organism, the animal, stayed with the body. The brain, even the head, is seen almost like an organ being transplanted, albeit a uniquely important one.
That's counterintuitive.
It can be, but a benefit of animalism is it handles some things well. Like it makes sense of us being the same entity that was once an embryo.
Right.
Or the idea that someone could exist in a persistent vegetative state that's still the same biological organism, just in a different condition.
Okay, so that's the body-first view. What's the alternative?
The main alternative is the mind-first perspective, often called psychological continuity.
Okay, mind first. So this focuses on...
Consciousness. Memories, thoughts, desires, personality traits. Your identity lies in this continuous flow, this stream of psychological experiences.
like John Locke's idea.
Exactly. Locke famously defined a person as a thinking, intelligent being that has reason and reflection and can consider itself as itself, the same thinking thing in different times and places.
So identity is tied to that continuous awareness of being yourself.
Pretty much. And on this view, if you transplant a brain, the resulting person is the head donor.
Because their mind, their psychological self, went with the brain.
Correct. That continuity is preserved.
But surely that view has problems too. What about memory loss? Amnesia?
Big problems, yes. That's a major hurdle. What if you forget huge parts of your past? Are you still the same person?
Or what if your memories are just wrong? We know memory isn't perfect.
Right, the memory trap, as some call it. Simple remembering isn't enough because memory is fallible, it fades. Identity seems deeper than just what you recall right now.
So how do they get around that?
Well, philosophers refine the idea. They talk about psychological connectedness, like the causal links between your mental states moment to moment and psychological continuity, which is a whole chain of these connections.
Okay.
This allows for gaps like sleep or unconsciousness and different kinds of links, not just direct memory recall. It's about the ongoing pattern.
But there's an even weirder problem, isn't there? The fission thing.
Oh, yes, the fission problem. This is a really tough one for the mind-first views.
This is explain that way.
Okay, imagine a wild thought experiment. Your brain has two hemispheres, right? Both largely capable of supporting consciousness, memory, personality.
Okay.
Now imagine we could transplant each hemisphere into a separate new body. Body A gets the left, body B gets the right. Let's call them lefty and righty.
All right. Spooky.
Both lefty and righty wake up. Both have your memories, your personality. Both feel like they are you. They are psychologically continuous with you.
So the mind first view says, what?
It implies that if psychological continuity defines identity, then you are lefty, and you are also righty.
That's impossible. You can't be two different people at the same time.
Exactly. It violates basic logic. One thing cannot be numerically identical to two distinct things.
So what's the solution then?
Well, one influential idea from people like Parfit and Shoemaker is the non-branching view.
On branching.
It says psychological continuity only counts for identity if it's unique, if it doesn't branch.
So in the fishing case, where it does branch.
The original person you ceases to exist. Neither lefty nor righty is you.
Wow, that's harsh. It means saving both halves of your brain leads to your death. But maybe saving only one half would let you survive.
It's deeply counterintuitive, isn't it? And this very paradox led Derek Parfit to this truly radical conclusion.
Which was?
He argued that maybe personal identity in that strict philosophical sense of being the exact same person is actually not what matters.
Not what matters, then what does?
Psychological continuity itself. Parfit suggested what we should really care about, what we have reason to want, is that someone psychologically continuous with us exists in the future.
Whether or not they are technically, numerically you.
Precisely. It's the continuation of your mental life that matters, not the label of identity.
That really does twist your brain. But okay, hang on. Thinking about these mind-first views.
Yes.
If I am my mind, my psychological stream.
Yes.
What about my body, my organism? It's alive, it seems pretty intelligent, it's doing stuff. Isn't it thinking too? Does that mean there are actually two conscious things sitting here right now? Me, my mind, and my body, the animal.
That's exactly the too many thinkers objection. It's a serious challenge.
Because how would I know which one I am? Me, the mind, or me, the organism, thinking these thoughts?
Right. And if you say the organism can't be conscious, well, that raises its own problems. Why couldn't a complex biological organism like a human body be conscious? Are there just like philosophical zombies walking around?
Things that look and act human but have no inner life. Yikes.
It puts enormous pressure on how we even use the word I. What are we referring to?
Okay, this is getting dizzying. Have any philosophers just thrown up their hands and said, maybe there's no self at all?
Some have gone exactly that far, yes.
Like who?
The most famous is probably David Hume with his bundle theory of self.
Bundle theory.
Hume argued that when we introspect, when we look inside ourselves, we never actually perceive a single enduring self.
What do we perceive then?
Just a constantly changing flow. A bundle or collection of different perceptions, as he put it. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, one after another, really fast.
So there's no core thing holding it all together. No soul, no fixed self.
According to Hume, no. Just the bundle.
That's pretty radical. What are the implications of that?
Huge implications. If Hume is right, then the you of today, this particular collection of thoughts and feelings, it won't last. It will cease to exist long before your body physically dies.
So death isn't the end of a single me. It's just the bundle falling apart.
Exactly. A dispersal of a temporary collection. Like taking apart the car as a whole entity ceases to exist, even if the parts are still there for a while.
It's a stark idea, but I can see how someone might find it liberating.
Some do, yes.
Like it takes the pressure off. Focus on the present moment because everything, including this sense of self, is impermanent anyway.
Precisely. It encourages appreciating the flow, the process, rather than clinging to a fixed idea of who you are.
Okay, let's circle back to the ship for a moment. The ship of Theseus.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like all these different philosophical views show why it's such a persistent puzzle.
They do. And maybe the puzzle itself tells us something important. Perhaps it highlights that there are no objective correct answers, in a simple sense.
Meaning
our whole understanding of identity might be deeply tangled up with, well, human perception, how we use language, our cultural context.
not some objective fact out there in the world.
Maybe not entirely. From a cognitive science angle, some argue the problem comes from what they call extreme externalism.
Which is?
Assuming that the categories we invent in our minds, like same ship or same person, perfectly map onto reality.
But maybe our brains are just simplifying things.
Yeah.
Creating useful labels.
Possibly. Identity might be more like an organizational structure our minds impose, or about perceptual continuity rather than some deep metaphysical property.
There's also that other view, deflationism.
Right, deflationism. That view basically says the whole debate is merely verbal.
Which is arguing about words.
Essentially, yeah. It's about how we choose to define ship or person, not about discovering some underlying fact about the universe. There's no single right definition waiting to be found.
I like that Liverpool-Dublin ferry example sometimes used.
How does a good one explain it?
Well, we call it the same ferry day after day, right? Even though it's probably had repairs, new paint, maybe engine parts replaced over the years.
Sure.
We call it the same because it serves the same role, it follows the same route, carries passengers between those cities, it has a functional identity, or maybe a narrative one, and not necessarily a strict, unchanging physical identity.
That's a perfect illustration. It underscores that classification, naming things, it's a learned skill.
We learn it as kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Children learn to impose order on this buzzing confusion of sensations. They associate experiences with names, and our shared naming conventions, the way we all agree to talk about things,
Creates this general perception of identity.
right, a kind of social construction that helps us navigate the world, even if that doesn't perfectly align with these strict philosophical definitions. One source even suggested the ship of Theseus itself, as a persistent object, might be an illusion our minds create by combining sensations.
So, okay, we've gone through ancient riddles, complex philosophy,
Yeah.
animalism, mind-first views, bundle theory.
It's a lot.
It is. But what does it all mean for us today? Especially now, with technology moving so fast, blurring lines everywhere.
That's the crucial question, isn't it? How do these ideas play out in the real world?
Let's revisit head transplants. You mentioned there was that real-world project, the Heaven Project.
Yes, aiming to perform a human head transplant.
And when that was announced, it caused a lot of, well, unease, right? People felt weird about it. Why do you think that was?
Well, some analysis suggest this unease stems from a really common, deeply ingrained feeling, maybe an intuition,
You kid.
that who we are is fundamentally tied to our body and mind together as a single unit.
I am this specific, focal person thinking my thoughts.
Exactly. It's a kind of intuitive, ontological body-mind monism, as the source put it. Messing with that feels profoundly wrong or unsettling to many. Unlike some ancient cultures where shapeshifting didn't seem to threaten identity, we seem much more attached to our physical form being core to us.
But the person wanting the transplant might feel very differently.
Absolutely. For someone facing paralysis or terminal illness, the desire for a functional body could easily override those philosophical or intuitive worries. Their perspective is key.
So who gets to decide if it's still them afterwards?
That's the point. The analysis suggests there are strong reasons to just leave it to the individual. Let them negotiate their own identity on their own terms after the transformation.
Their subjective experience might trump all the theories.
It might. And that lived experience could be incredibly powerful.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. What about AI and identity? Can we apply the ship of Theseus there?
Definitely. Think about it. What if you swap out an AI's core brain, its main data set or algorithm?
Like upgrading a large language model from one version to a completely new one. GPT-3 to GPT-J or something.
Right. The AI might keep its name, its avatar, its interface. But its intelligence, its learned knowledge, its way of thinking could be totally different.
Is it still the same AI?
That's the question. It pushes our ideas about identity beyond biology. It makes us ask about AI's ability to emulate human experiences, maybe even develop some form of self-perception.
What happens if an AI claims it's different after a swap? Or has memories it wasn't trained on?
Then we're in really deep water, aren't we? What does identity mean for non-biological minds? Does an AI gain rights if it develops a sense of self? Who owns the identity of a radically changed AI?
And then there's the next step. Not just separate AI, but integrated AI.
Ah, like Neuralink and similar technologies.
Yeah, the promise of directly connecting human brains to AI systems. Augmenting our cognition, maybe instant knowledge access, external memory storage.
This just takes all these questions and amplifies them, doesn't it? It further blurs that line between human and machine.
How does it impact our sense of self, our agency, our autonomy?
If parts of your memory or even your decision-making processes are happening partly via an external AI, who is the cue making the choice?
What if your mental abilities get constantly updated, like software?
Exactly. It leads to thinking about identity almost like software versioning.
Mentioning.
Yeah, maybe we become version 1.0, then 2.0 after an implant, 2.1 after an update. New versions or forks of ourselves.
Each update potentially shifting who we fundamentally are.
Potentially. It forces a confrontation with how fluid identity might become.
It's fascinating because this whole deep dive, it really shows this isn't just some dusty academic debate.
Not at all.
It's about trying to figure out, where the edge lies. The edge of our humanity in a world that's changing so incredibly fast.
Absolutely. What we've seen is that personal identity isn't simple. It's not fixed.
No easy answers.
No. It seems to be this incredibly complex interplay. Physical continuity matters to some degree. Psychological experience matters hugely, but so does social perception, context, language.
It's all mixed together.
Yeah, so whether you lean towards thinking of yourself as this ever-changing organism,
Or a bundle of fleeting perceptions.
or maybe even down the line some kind of human-AI hybrid, a new version.
The you sitting here today is this amazing, confusing, fascinating result of all these processes and ideas.
It really is. And it leaves us with a final thought to chew on.
Okay.
If someday a human head transplant is successful and the patient recovers, lives a conscious life, maybe even with their personality largely intact,
Yeah.
will that real-world event finally shift how humanity generally thinks about identity? Could it do what millennia of philosophical arguments and thought experiments haven't quite managed to do? Actually change our gut feeling about where we reside?